Hello and welcome back to Exothermic Plays Games. I'm Exothermic and the date today is Tuesday, October 15th, 2024. I've been doing a countdown of my favorite video games of all time through each day of the year, and buckle in, because as a spoiler, all three of these things are on the list and I've got a lot to say about them. Coming in at number 78 is Mass Effect. Hot damn, I love Mass Effect. As mentioned, I'll be covering the main trilogy between now and the end of the year, and there's some things you should know going into this one. For starters, kind of the big thing regarding Mass Effect is the way it's all one enormous story, spanning 3 very long games with tons of things to do. You can carry save files over from game to game, causing the decisions you make to influence later events throughout the trilogy as you go through it all, and I'm not hiding stuff on this one. The way things build from game to game does in fact mean to me that this first one is kind of the worst, and the third one is the best, as just I really like having my decisions build up over time. But I am going to give tons of massive spoilers throughout this video, so check the description for the timestamp to my more spoiler-free final thoughts if you want to skip them, but also there is exposition that I'll be covering first. Just know that you might get pretty lost if you watch the later videos, because those will be made with the assumption that you either know the key events from the previous games or that you watched the videos for them. That all being said, we are getting, as I mentioned, all the necessary world building in this video. If you want to skip the world building stuff, and there's a lot, there's also a timestamp in the description for that. Now, Mass Effect is a sci-fi role-playing shooter where, as mentioned, your decisions matter. Humanity has reached intergalactic civilization thanks to the discovery of these giant mechanisms in space called mass relays. They can be used for intergalactic travel, launching spaceships through unthinkably large expanses of nothingness to another relay. The hub of this civilization is an insanely large spaceship called the Citadel. While humans are still relatively new to all of this, some have been doing it for millennia, all with this technology being much older, however, presumably being left there by a now mysteriously extinct advanced alien lifeform called the Protheans. You play as Commander Shepard, a human military veteran with an impressive resume aboard a prototype ship called the Normandy. There's a lot of player control over what Shepard is like, not only in appearance, but also in abilities and even personality. Regarding ability, you choose a character class at the start of the game, and while there's definitely some overlap, like they're all shooting lots of guns and have different active abilities and other upgradable skills, some classes focus heavily on weapons, some on pseudo-spells called biotics, and others on different technology-related abilities. In this game, I'm playing as a Sentinel class, having a lot of defensive help and enemy disabling skills in both biotics and attack, like lifting enemies out of cover, poisoning organics, and disarming weapons. The combat in the first Mass Effect game is actually pretty different from the others if you've only played those. Yeah, you're still shooting stuff and activating abilities, but the pacing of the game is much slower, especially on higher difficulties. Originally, I was doing this file on the hardest difficulty because I never did it before and wanted the challenge, but then in the interest of time, I eventually decided to lower the difficulty a ton, so you'll see some wildly different things going on in that department. You also have a loadout of different weapons and can pause combat to make tactical decisions. This includes swapping which weapon you have out, not only for you, but also teammates, but also activating yours and their abilities. Between tech and biotic options, there's a lot to do. Each ability has its uses, and you'll want to pick the characters in your squad accordingly based on the challenges you're facing. Importantly, the ammo system is very different in this game in that there is no ammo. Instead, every weapon has a heat sink, and each time you fire it, it gets hotter. Different brands of weapons and levels of them can fire more rounds without needing to cool down. And if you ever reach maximum heat, you can't fire again from that weapon at least until it's cooled down entirely. The management of this system is really compelling and allows the gear system to give you tons of options for customization between the different guns and also modifications you can make to them, but also there's different armor, biotic amps, a thing for your technology stuff, all sorts of things. Alongside the classes, this allows for huge variance in playstyles and promotes extensive experimentation to find something entirely unique to your own liking and preference for play. I really, really like this system. Also, depending on whether you're playing the Legendary Edition or the original, you might be restricted in some of your weapon options based on your class choice, but I think there's merit to both, and technically this ranking is for the original, but I'm recording all 3 games this time around with the Legendary Edition. Most notably, the game runs faster, especially on this first game, which was notorious for spending so much time in elevators. Now I only spend time in them if I want to, and sometimes I do. There's loads of world building in Mass Effect, especially this first one. From an enormous amount of side quests and conversations with random NPCs to ambient dialogue to an entire encyclopedia's worth of information in the form of the codex that you can read, which you acquire through character interaction, story progress, hacking terminals, and just inspecting stuff in your surroundings. But a lot of my favorite world building is actually the elevator radio reports. You get little news updates in your elevator trips on the Citadel, where you absolutely will be spending a lot of time, and as you become increasingly important, while they might not always be about you specifically, they're often pertaining to the activities you've been up to, or can be clues for things to check out. And if you keep helping her out with things, you'll get to follow a journalist in her rise to prominence as she kind of uncovers some of the seedy underbelly of the intergalactic capital city, which I think is a great subplot that actually carries over through all 3 games. There really is loads to do on the Citadel. In addition to normal RPG City things like places to buy new gear, it's also the hub for most of your side quests. Every intelligent species with interstellar travel capabilities is here, well, more or less, and there's a good amount of them. Humans are the newest group to the bunch, but they've been carving a name for themselves fast. That being said, the Citadel is governed by an elite group known as the Council. 3 species have 1 delegate each on the Council. The oldest and supposedly wisest of them are the Asari. These blue aliens are monosex, so in appearance they all would appear female to us, despite not technically having any kind of gender structure themselves. They think the whole thing is kind of weird. There's a whole lot of lore here for how they specifically have children, and it's actually kind of interesting if you dig into it. But this is not the video for that. The short version is telepathy. Second to find the Citadel were the Solarians. While Asari live massive lifespans, sometimes over the age of 1,000 in Earth years, Solarians go the opposite direction. They are amphibian people with hyper-fast metabolisms and, importantly, brains. Everything they do is fast. They think fast, they talk fast, they walk fast, and they judge fast. My favorite character in this entire franchise is a Solarian, though we unfortunately do not meet him in this game. The newest member race of the Council is the Turians. They're the most human-like race on the Council in temperament, which is ironic because the reason humanity discovered the mass relays to begin with was because of an accidental war with the Turians started by, well, just kind of running into us and thinking we were doing something bad, and then being like, oh, they didn't know anything. In fact, they didn't know aliens existed. Oops. Humanity's resilience against the superior firepower and technology of the Turians earned them a spot in the intergalactic community and space in the Citadel. That's all not that distant history during these games, however, so the Turians have a lot of respect for the Human Alliance, but there's also a lot of distrust that goes both ways. Despite this, CSEC, the police force of the Citadel, is actually primarily made up of Turians and humans. There's far more than just those races, though. Many of the other races are just kinda there, doing their own thing with their own special backgrounds, but there's a few others that are significant to the story I need to touch on. The Keepers are an organic race that nobody knows much about. They are named such because they keep and maintain the Citadel, performing maintenance and executing many of the city ship's functions. Notably, they don't talk, and were already there when the Asari arrived. Nobody knows where they came from, or why they do what they do. Outside of the Citadel, there's other races that either aren't allowed there, or just rarely venture into that part of space. Quarians are a nomadic people that primarily stay in their massive ship flotilla, but as a rite of passage go on a pilgrimage into the wider society. Their entire civilization is extremely isolationist, but this is often how they get new parts, information, and technologies to upgrade their own ships. It's unclear what they really look like for the most part, because they are always seen wearing a biosuit, because air outside their home planet is extremely toxic to them. The problem is they can't go back to their home planet because it was entirely taken over by a synthetic race of their own creation, which nearly wiped out their entire people. The Geth. Clearly, they didn't watch Terminator. The Quarians aren't the only race that's had troubles with genocide, however. The last critical species we'll be seeing a lot of in this game is the mighty Krogan. They're big and reptilian, and oh wow, they are dying. Because of their incredible strength and military prowess, the Solarians accelerated their progress into being a spacefaring people in order to recruit them in a war to eliminate another bug-like species called the Rachni. But the Krogan grew too powerful too quickly. As a safety measure to stop their warmongering and possible backlash against other species, the Turians developed a genetic weapon against the Krogans called the Genophage. This drastically lowered the fertility rate of all female Krogans, pretty much ensuring the eventual demise of the entire species. It's obviously a big issue for them, and this insurmountable animosity towards the Turians and other races that have supported the genocide is the reason that Krogans are rarely seen on the Citadel. But that's okay, because there's still so much to see. There's loads to explore and plenty of people to talk to. I mentioned it being a hub for side quests, but it's also where you're going to pick up several of your team members. You can hack terminals and find important data, which actually I really like the hacking in the first Mass Effect game. You have this circle you spin around with loads of obstacles also spinning around, and you have to navigate to the center without touching anything. It's fun. The sites, the shops, the subplots, the politics, the intrigue, everything is going down at the Citadel. You can even check out the clubs, where you'll find informants, take out drug dealers, and what's this? Commander Shepard! You are supposed to be saving the galaxy! And with that, I think I've covered the background lore necessary to actually explain this game. A distress signal has gone out on Eden Prime, a human colony planet, and Shepard is sent to investigate. Joining him is Kaidan Alenko, another human soldier with a strong sense of duty, and even stronger headaches. I mentioned biotics being like casting spells, but for humans, the way we're able to access them is through amplifiers put into our brains. Kaidan was part of an experimental, meaning illegal, test program as a child, and has a particularly wonky biotic amp in that skull of his, which is an interesting subplot for him. What Shepard doesn't know is that this mission is also a test. Humanity has proven to be a valuable asset to the galactic community, and they are pushing to gain more responsibilities and also more power. The Council is not yet ready to grant them a seat of their own, but they are willing to explore the possibility of a human Spectre. Spectres are elite operatives that work, in a way, for the Council rather than any other organization. They're free to do more or less whatever they want as long as it aligns with helping all of the Citadel civilizations, but do report to the Citadel directly. Joining you on the mission is Nihilus, a Turian Spectre, to evaluate you. When you get to the planet, you discover that Geth are attacking the colony. It's not immediately clear what's all going on here, but you find a soldier under heavy fire and rush to save her, only to realize that maybe she didn't really need your help after all. This is Gunnery Chief Ashley Williams, the first person to join your crew, other than Caden, of course. As you learn more, the Geth are after a Prothean beacon that was excavated from the planet. It's important to remember that the Protheans are what led to all mass technological advancements for all of these advanced species, so this is a big deal. As you make your way towards the beacon, taking down Geth at every turn, Nihilus has gotten a bit ahead of you. Much to his surprise, he finds another Turian Spectre already on world, named Saren. Saren explains that the situation here was dire and he had already been working on it, so Nihilus lets his guard down so they can share information and formulate a plan. And Saren shoots him in the head. The game wastes no time at all, letting you know that Saren is definitely the antagonist here, and has allied with the Geth, who seem to be serving under his command. He gets to the beacon, does something, and then books it out of there. After saving the rest of the colony from the Geth, who have been planting explosive charges and seemingly reanimating corpses into something we call husks, you also reach the beacon, where it reacts to Shepard, and they are shown a terrifying, incomprehensible nightmare of a vision. There's flesh, and bone, and machine, and it's all kinda terrible to look at. Back on his own ship, Saren is talking to an Asari woman who we later learn is very important and named Matriarch Benezia. She's something of a spiritual leader for all of the Asari and is quite old and one of the most powerful biotic users alive. More on her later, but Saren is not happy that Shepard managed to activate the beacon and makes it a goal of his to kill you. Meanwhile, you wake up back on the Normandy. Ashley and Caden drag you back there after you passed out from the vision and the beacon exploding. But the Geth booked it out of there as well, or you killed them all, and you've got to get to the Citadel to warn the Council that Saren is up to no good. Problem is, they don't really believe you. And this is where the game actually kicks off. I know I've done a lot of talking, but hang with me. The exposition and world building was really important in order to cover everything else, because everything for the next 3 games of this franchise builds upon it. For the most part, I get to be really vague now, except when I can't. You see, the driving factor behind Mass Effect's compelling gameplay isn't the guns. It isn't the spells. It isn't the totally not spells, but still kind of spells tech abilities. It's talking. And oh man, do you talk. Much of the entire franchise can go in wildly different directions based on decisions you make even in these early sections of this game. Carrying over save files means you carry over those decisions too, though there's default ones that are made if you just make a new file on the later titles. It's hard to get into specifics that might not even exist, let alone exist in the same way. So know that there's a ton of side missions and awesome storytelling here outside of the rest of what I'm talking about, and it's very much worth doing everything in these games. Back to the main plot. While the Council doesn't entirely buy that Saren has gone rogue, they are intrigued by the vision Shepard had, and are at least suspicious enough to gather more intel on Saren's activities. This becomes your first duty as a Spectre, because for your efforts at repelling the Geth invasion and saving the colony at Eden Prime, the Council makes you the first human Spectre. This is especially crazy because of the people that convinced them to do it. Ambassador Udina is a shrewd politician doing shrewd politician stuff. He understands the game, and he's good at it, which means he kinda sucks as a person. But more importantly, alongside him, working the Council's ear, is David Anderson, the captain of the Normandy. They don't get into this right away, but several years ago, Anderson was actually tested to become the first human Spectre, but everything went terribly wrong, in large part because of the person assigned to oversee his audition. It was, of course, Saren. Other than Saren kind of setting up Anderson for failure, they don't explain much of it in this game, but there's actually a full-length novel written about this story, and it's surprisingly good. Anderson is a great character, and Saren, before going full traitor, is a very good Spectre, and admittedly does a whole lot to protect the Citadel and the Council's interests. He's just a prick about it. Before you head out on your mission, though, there's some things you need to take care of on the Citadel. For starters, now that you can do things kind of outside the law, the Normandy is no longer a part of the Alliance fleet, so you become its captain, with Anderson taking a more political role, even though he dislikes it. It's an adjustment for the rest of the crew, who look up to you in many ways, but if you're going to go after a rogue Spectre, you're also going to need help from some different prominent races, if nothing else, so you're not giving the illusion that this is just a human problem. The remaining members of your squad join you for all sorts of reasons. Garrus Vicarian is a hard-nosed Turian that used to be a member of CSEC, but leaves it to join you because doing things by the book too often leads to bad people getting away with doing bad things. Talizora Naraya is a young Turian on her pilgrimage and decides to join you because how can she protect the flotilla if there's Geth invading other settlements? Importantly, she also has vital evidence in proving Saren's evil doing to the Council. With this data, we also hear the first mention of the Reapers, a mysterious alien force that may have actually been the cause of the demise of the Protheans. Seeking additional information regarding the Prothean connection, not only with the Reapers, but also the vision from the beacon, you leave the Citadel to look into an expert archaeologist on the matter. Liara Tassoni is such an expert despite her relatively young age for an Asari at just over 100 years old. More important, however, to your mission, is that her mother is none other than Matriarch Benezia. There's a lot to explore with Liara about this relationship, and it's actually very interesting regarding the dialogue and everything else connected to it that you get to slowly peel back over the course of the game. There is one last member of your squad to recruit, and that's the Muscle, Erdnot Rex, the Krogan. Originally, he's using you as a means to fulfill a hit he's been hired for as a mercenary. But then he gains respect for you and joins the quest to save the galaxy because really, his main goal is finding ways to deal with the problems stemming from the genophage. I will repeat, Rex's primary motivation is finding solutions to the genophage. Carrying on. Once the gang's all together, you can do, well, lots of things. Spend more time on the Citadel, look for rare metals, scanning planets, which mostly is helping with codex fulfillment. Talk to people, talk to more people. Oh my god, all of the talking to people. I'm serious, this is actually very important, especially if you want desirable outcomes late in the game. Many actions you take and dialogue options you select will increase either your Paragon or Renegade points. As you gain more of those points, your maximum skill in Charm or Intimidation, respectively, will increase, allowing you to spend skill points from leveling up on them, which can unlock additional dialogue options amongst other benefits later in the game. There's problems you'll run into that you cannot solve without having a high enough charm or intimidation. That's not to say you'll be stuck, of course, you'll just be out of control. More on that later, but the thing you can really spend a lot of time doing that's not in any way related to the main story is just exploring the dozens of planets out there in the game. Really, only like 5 of them matter, but all of the others are just stuff to do, and there's a lot. Touch down on your Mako, which is an armored vehicle that's basically indestructible, and drive around. It's, not great. I honestly do not like the Mako sections of the game. While there are cool moments, most of it's pretty boring and repetitive, and the vehicle itself frequently gets stuck on the dumbest things. The Mako is holding the game's ranking back a fair amount, but whenever you want to get moving along the story, there's a couple of places to check out. One such place is Pharos, another human colony with some weird problems, also under siege by the Geth. It turns out that Saren had already been there, and all of the people are acting real weird. The whole colony is, it turns out, being mind-controlled by a giant, ancient plant. I mentioned that there's decisions you make that can radically change subplots of the later games. This is one of them. You can kill the plant and the colonists. Kill the plant and save the colonists, or just try to save everything, all based on the things you say and do. I killed the plant and saved the colonists here. But more importantly, the plant has information for you regarding the Protheans, and it's able to give you a cipher to help better understand the vision you had. Things are getting clearer, and you can tell now that the vision is of the Protheans getting wiped out by, presumably, the Reapers, but we still don't know a lot, other than one of them has a name. Sovereign appears to be the ship for a Reaper, and they are kind of the herald for more of them to come. It's apparent now that Saren is working for the Reapers through his own misguided attempt at ensuring survival from what he thinks is the end of everything. There's more to this puzzle, however. Head over to Noveria, where other things that are weird are happening. Matriarch Benezia is there and has been checking in on some top-secret research facilities. Well, one of them is under siege by what should be an extinct alien species? Remember the Rachni War? Krogans wiped them all out, and then the Turians made the genophage to slowly wipe the Krogans out? Well, this planet's basically Jurassic Park now, and Benezia has been bringing Rachni back to life. Interestingly, while she has seemed totally evil every step of the way, there's some great dialogue and sequences that happen if you bring Liara with you on the mission. Benezia fights back against something seemingly controlling her actions, and is able to give us a lot of crucial information. Sovereign is not a ship. Sovereign is a Reaper, and they can mind control other species via something called indoctrination. This is how they gain footholds before wiping out civilizations. They indoctrinate key people in positions of power, and then use them to create the means for their own destruction. Benezia is able to fight against this indoctrination in her last moments, and has some really great dialogue with Liara before she can't resist anymore, and you have to put her down. But not before she gives you all the info you're missing about where Saren is going and what he's up to. That does leave one thing left, though, on Noveria. What do you do with the imprisoned Rachni Queen? You can save her or kill her, and this also has other implications throughout the other games. In this file, I chose to save her. After Noveria, you report back to the Council to update them on Saren and try to get help to defend the Citadel from this imminent attack from Sovereign and Saren himself. Thankfully, they actually kind of listen to you, but not without Ambassador Udina doing a power grab and being a total jerk about everything. You get sent to a planet called Vermeer, where an infiltration unit has fallen off the grid after they were gathering additional intel on Saren. It turns out that you're stuck there now, unless you can take out Saren's main base. You work with the Solarian team to devise a plan to nuke the whole damn place, and it's likely a suicide run for those brave Solarians who will distract Saren's people while you infiltrate to plant the bomb. There's just two problems. First, Saren's using the place to breed Krogan. They found a pseudo-cure for the genophage, though these Krogan are somehow even more aggressive than usual and seem subservient to Saren. Regardless, Rex is not about to let you blow the whole thing up. After all, this would save his entire people, and getting rid of it may doom them to extinction. This is, to me, the actual climax of the game, and the reason we've been building up Paragon points and maxed out Charm as fast as possible. Because Rex is going to shoot you, unless you shoot him. And that absolutely is what will happen. You can straight up lose key characters throughout the game. But with enough Paragon, you're able to talk him down and convince him that this supposed cure isn't actually beneficial to the Krogan and just makes them slaves to Saren's will. The other issue is that between Caden and Ashley, someone needs to set the bomb, and someone needs to help the Solarians. This puts them both at very high risk, but you've got a job to do. I sent Ashley with the Solarians, and Caden could set the bomb. Fast forward a bit, and we actually get a discussion with Sovereign, where we learn that the Reapers are part of a cycle of destroying intelligent life every 50-ish thousand years, and we're due for a culling. When you go to actually blow up the place, you're stuck between helping Ashley, who's pinned down, or helping Caden, who's armed the bomb but can't get out. You cannot save both. It's impossible. Vermeer is the most important planet in this whole game because it has the biggest decisions and it's amazing. That being said, I saved Caden, in large part because I think he's just more interesting story-wise and Ashley's kinda boring. Kick Saren's ass, but not without getting through some of the cracks in his indoctrination and then get out of there after blowing the place up. Unfortunately, Saren got out too. Finally, you're at the end of the game. You learn where the Reapers are going to attack from, and head to a lost planet, Ilos, an ancient research world for the Protheans. Before heading there, I can't really talk about a Mass Effect game without addressing the only thing mainstream news media discussed with the game at its release, and that's the romance options. Over the course of the game, as you talk to your crew members, you can develop interpersonal relationships that can manifest in potential fun times for Shepard, and this is the point in the game that would happen. In part because it takes the least amount of work, I did romance Liara in this file, and really, other than a somewhat gratuitous amount of blue butt, I cannot fathom what Fox News got so worked up about. Anyways, back to the mission. There's a lot going on here, but the important thing is that you meet a Prothean virtual intelligence who is able to fill in all the missing info about the last days of the Protheans. The Reapers are, unfortunately, kind of unstoppable, but the Protheans were able to get a warning out via the beacons and create a loophole into the Reapers' systems to delay things. Remember the Keepers, and how I said they would be important? It turns out they were, at least, as the Protheans have determined, the first species that the Reapers harvested and left them to run the Citadel, so that other species could be guided down this set path rather than innovating and finding new paths. However, over time they've evolved to take orders from the Citadel itself rather than the Reapers. What the Protheans were able to do is take advantage of this and disrupt the controls of the Citadel so it can't do the thing it was originally meant to do without direct override. This means the rest of the Reapers were already supposed to be there, but Sovereign was the only one that made it, and they have to manually activate the Citadel, which is secretly a giant mass relay. So the thought process here is that if you could stop Sovereign, you can stop the Reaper invasion, or at least drastically delay it, while you come up with a solution. The Protheans died to buy us time, and they're the real MVPs here. This Prothean base also has a secret back door to the Citadel. You hop in, chasing after Saren, and confront him, while the entirety of the Citadel's defense forces are tackling Sovereign. Remember the importance of talking? Well, it comes up again. In this file, in the big climactic finale with Saren, I'm able to convince him he's in the wrong, and well, this happens.
Future Shepard, the evolution of all organic life. This
Sovereign hasn't won yet. I can stop it from taking control.
We can't stop it. Not forever. You saw the visions. You saw what happened.
Some part of you must.
You're right. Maybe there is still a chance for the implants. Sovereign is too strong. I'm sorry. It is too late for me.
It's not over yet. You can still redeem yourself.
Goodbye, Shepard. Thank you.
It's wild. It's incredible. Mass Effect is awesome. Unfortunately, Sovereign kind of foresaw this and planted a failsafe in there to reanimate Saren's corpse and make him try to kill you anyways. He fails. After you take down Saren for real, this somehow, I don't really understand it, takes down Sovereign's shields and the fleet is able to blow them the hell up. You make some other decisions throughout this whole process, including whether or not you save the flagship that has the Council on it. I chose to save them even though they were really mean to me the whole game, and then as thanks for everything I've done, they offer a seat on the Council to humanity, and Commander Shepard gets to decide whether it be the experienced politician, Ambassador Udina, or the grizzled veteran who has, a heart of gold and just wants to do the right thing, David Anderson. Udina can go suck a Krogan dick, and I put Anderson in charge. And we did it! We beat Mass Effect 1! Awesome. This is, as I mentioned, only one way that all the story elements can go down, but much of what I talked about is the key stuff that while the end result may be a bit different in the finer details, you've gotta get through it in some way. The openness of these games is really great, and while there are games that are technically, more open, nothing has really threaded the needle so well between player choice and also a sweeping, epic story. And yes, I'm aware about the ending of Mass Effect 3. We'll get there when we get there. Having played these games and read the books, I truly love the world building of Mass Effect. There's so much care and consideration that went into it all, and I really do feel like the options are endless. The sheer volume of information in the Codex is one thing, but also the way side quests have domino-like repercussions reaching far into the third game has had me playing the trilogy over and over and over to see all of the different ways things cascade into one another, with even seemingly the most unimportant interactions having far-reaching consequences. The most different thing about Mass Effect 1 compared to 2 and 3 are the RPG elements and the shooting. Just because I'm ranking one lower than the others doesn't mean I disliked those differences, but I do think they're rough around the edges. I wish we had stuck with the slower, more strategic combat present in this game, and the heatsink method of ammo was really fascinating, especially when I was trying this on the higher difficulty. But ultimately, they went in a different direction, leaning more into the action combat aspects, which, don't get me wrong, are done very well in those other games, but there's something about it that felt wholly unique to Mass Effect in this first game, and I'd like to see how they could have refined it instead. The characters are all incredibly interesting and lifelink. I have spent, we're pushing 40 minutes talking about this game and didn't even talk about my favorite character in this one. Again, my favorite overall is in a later title. But Joker, the pilot for your ship, is awesome. He's got brittle bones, so he can't really move much, but he's the best pilot in the Alliance fleet, and he will remind you of that constantly. Despite his overwhelming odds, he is really incredible at what he does, and is voiced by Seth Green, yes, that Seth Green, which is perfect for his sassy, sarcastic sense of humor. Across the board, the sheer breadth of the dialogue options are remarkable. The scenery is gorgeous. The music is unforgettable. Mass Effect was way ahead of its time, and I hope to someday see a game with the same ambition regarding tactical, strategic shooting gameplay and massive player agency. Until then, join me tomorrow as I talk about my 77th favorite game where I cannot believe this vacuum works this well.